5 minutes past, the former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon speaking with the House Intelligence Committee for a long time yesterday. And he's expected to go back for round two tomorrow. Meanwhile, that same panel will talk with Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski today. And South Carolina Congressman Trey Gowdy, member of that committee, with a lot of questions to ask. Sir, good morning and welcome back to America's Newsroom.
Good morning. Thank you.
I heard you last night say that Steve Bannon was using a tortured version of executive privilege. Well, he was there for 12 hours. So, yeah, I imagine you talked about something.
Well, we spent the first half of the day trying to understand what in the world he was talking about with executive privilege. His version of executive privilege is it covers the transition, it covers the time he was at the White House, and it covers time in memorial. That is no one's definition of executive privilege. So we spent several hours trying to figure out just what the heck he was talking about, and then in the afternoon, we had to dodge around these three categories that are apparently off limits. Now, Bill, keep in mind, this is the same person who accused two of the president's family members of committing treasonous acts. So, of course, we're going to want to cross-examine him on what he thinks was treasonous. But if everything's off limits, that's a really short conversation.
So I take it you asked him about the treasonous comment and he did not answer it, right?
I tried to. Well, that's the beauty of it. He answered it initially, and then apparently his lawyer didn't like the fact that he answered it, so then he clammed up. That is an eminently reasonable, legitimate question. If you're going to accuse somebody of a crime for which you can be put to death, what is your evidence for that? So I don't know anyone who wouldn't ask that question. He started to answer it, and then his lawyers got involved, and that usually messes up almost everything, and that's why we were there for a long time yesterday, but we're going to have to go back tomorrow.
You sound frustrated. Do I have that right?
I am frustrated whenever people assert privileges that do not exist. And I am really frustrated when witnesses have all the time in the world to talk to the media on and off the record, and they can help people write books, but they can't talk to the representatives that are elected by their fellow citizens. I mean, picture that. He's happy to tell an author about treasonous, unpatriotic acts, but he won't tell members of Congress when he's pressed on it. I'm not aware of any privilege that lets you pick and choose who you answer questions for.
I understand the point you're making, and any reason to expect there's a difference tomorrow. Now, did you settle on any ground rules late yesterday that would indicate that would be different on Thursday?
Bill, there's one thing that can fix it, which is the White House instructs Steve Bannon, we're not asserting executive privilege. We are telling you to answer all of the questions that Congress has. That could fix it in a nanosecond. Yeah. If the White House would say, answer their questions, Steve.
Have you found evidence of collusion?
No, sir. But we're not through yet. And some of my colleagues have already made up their minds, namely Adam Schiff. He found collusion before we even started. So I'm not sure how you do that, but he did it. I have seen no evidence of collusion between the president and the Russians, the president's campaign and the Russians. But we still have more interviews to do.
Okay, two more questions here. Corey Lewandowski appears today. Do you expect him to have the same posture as Steve Bannon?
I hope not. I hope not. It would be all we're doing is delaying. I mean, keep in mind the president and some of his supporters want Congress to hurry up and conclude these investigations. So do I. The best way to do that is to instruct witnesses to answer our questions instead of going through this charade of executive privilege.
Jim Rybecki appears tomorrow. Who is he, and why is he important?
He's a high-level FBI official who served under Jim Comey and currently serves, and we are looking at all the decisions the Department of Justice and the FBI made in 2016, and he's an integral part of that. I mean, keep in mind, Bill, this time last year, the Democrats wanted Jim Comey prosecuted for a Hatch Act violation. They now want him canonized or on Mount Rushmore, but this time last year, they wanted him prosecuted. So Republicans and Democrats have questions about decisions made by the Department of Justice in 2016. It's just the Democrats have stopped asking their questions and we have not.
Was Rybecki part of reporting or drafting the letter that exonerated Hillary Clinton?
He's copied on it. He's copied on it, and the only way to know whether or not he played a meaningful role in drafting it is to interview him, which is what we're going to do tomorrow. But he was certainly copied on the drafts, so we need to know, did you participate in the editing, and is there also a prosecution version of that memo? We've seen the exoneration version, two months before they concluded the investigation. Is there also a separate memo where you lay out the theory upon which she could be prosecuted? Because if there's not, and I don't think there is, then you made up your mind 2 months before you even interviewed the target of the investigation, which is really hard to believe.
Trey Gowdy, thank you for your time. Get back to work there in Washington,
yes,
okay?
Sir.
You're welcome. Come
Yep.
back here anytime. The Republican from South Carolina, thank you. One of his big allegations last night